What happens when the systems we count on, like education, essential care, what happens when they don't just start failing, but maybe start working exactly as designed to push some people out? It's a really unsettling question, and it's right at the center of our deep dive today. We're diving into this incredibly powerful piece by Jaime Hoerricks, a PhD, called "The Future They're Building Has No Room for Us: Autistic Survival Beyond the Clearing." And our mission here is really to unpack how some policy shifts that seem kind of quiet on the surface, especially around student loans, how they're actually creating this huge ripple effect, because it's not just about financial aid. It hits access to crucial jobs, to essential care, and that has profound implications for autistic people, particularly those with higher support needs. Hoerricks makes this argument about a shift, a really stark one, from education as promise to education as penalty.
And from public support to private extraction.
Exactly. So this isn't just some abstract policy discussion. It's about what happens next, in real lives. Maybe people like you listening right now. Okay, so let's start by unpacking that first policy change Hoerricks highlights. It's the end of in-school student loan deferment. Seems technical, right? But it's set to kick in around 2026. And it quietly changes, well, basically everything for anyone who needs to borrow money for college, because suddenly interest starts piling up right away, even while you're still studying.
And Hoerricks connects this seemingly small tweak to a much, much bigger picture. Their argument is this isn't an accident, it's not an oversight, it's a signal. It's a deliberate move away from that idea of education as a promise towards education as a penalty. It's kind of economic enclosure, if you will.
Enclosure, like walling it off.
Yeah, exactly. Taking what was seen as a shared public good, a path to opportunity, and turning it into this high-cost, almost punitive, well, they call it a subscription service. And it's designed for private extraction. It's really a systematic shift, replacing public support with private profit. And it effectively penalizes people just for wanting to learn.
Okay, right. And here's where it gets really interesting and honestly pretty alarming. Hoerricks brings in this core idea about the clearing of essential professions. It's not just that these jobs are disappearing, but that they're being deliberately sort of cleared out, made inaccessible. These are jobs that are absolute cornerstones for many vulnerable communities. Hoerricks actually names 5 specific professions.
Yeah, the ones they say make life possible for many autistic people. Especially, non-speaking folks, multiply disabled, low-income individuals.
Right. Teachers, nurses, social workers, speech-language pathologists, SLPs, and psychologists. And the author really stresses these aren't luxuries. These are the people who, and I'm quoting here, scaffold our communication, our regulation, our safety, our belonging.
Precisely. And this clearing, it isn't just that these jobs are underfunded or, disrespected, though they absolutely are. The argument is stronger. It's that they're being actively priced out of reach.
Priced out? How so?
Well, think about it. The paths that used to let working class people enter these fields, people who genuinely wanted to serve their communities, those paths are closing. If you can't take on massive student debt, like tens, hundreds of thousands, with interest taking up from day one, you just can't afford to become a teacher or an SLP or work in a public hospital as a nurse.
Because that support, like the in-school deferment, it's just gone.
Exactly. The cost is simply too high.
So, okay, if these crucial jobs are being systematically cleared out, what happens to the services they provide? That's the logical next step, right?
Yeah, and the argument is pretty stark. Those essential services just start to vanish. Or maybe worse, they get replaced by these cheaper, faster alternatives.
Ah, the tech solutions.
Right. Things that claim to scale care. But Hoerricks argues they offer no real care at all.
And they give some pretty chilling examples, don't they?
They do. Classroom algorithms, chatbot therapists.
Gamified speech apps. I remember reading that bit. Apps that just wouldn't get something like Gestalt language processing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where the meaning isn't word by word, it's the whole chunk, the Gestalt.
Yeah.
These apps can't handle that nuance. And then there are predictive data models instead of actual social workers connecting with people.
Wow.
And this ties right into Hoerricks' core message, which is, it's really blunt. What we're being told, they say, is plainly that autistic survival is conditional, that support is not a right, it's a product.
A product.
Yeah. And if you can't afford it, or, crucially, if you don't fit its pre-programmed expectations, well, then you just won't get it. It is. And the author's conclusion from that point is, it's incredibly stark. They write, it's not that the world forgets we exist. It's that it calculates we cost too much to keep.
Wow. Just calculates survival as a cost-benefit analysis.
It's a really chilling thought to sit with, isn't
It
it?
really is. So, okay, these essential human services start to disappear. Who steps into that gap? Hoerricks paints this picture of a specific group seeing not a crisis, but an opportunity. The tech bros, as they put it.
We're on cue, yeah.
Yeah.
As Hoerricks puts it, the tech bros enter the chat swagger first, nuanced never. They see this collapse of education, of care, not with any sense of loss, but as a market opportunity.
So fewer teachers.
Perfect. Let's roll out the learning algorithm.
Therapist shortage.
Here's a chatbot, complete with pre-written empathy prompts.
SLPs too expensive or unavailable?
There's an app for that. Bright colors, maybe some sticker rewards.
Uh-huh.
But zero human attunement needed, apparently.
Nurses burning out.
Oh, we've got remote triage via wearable sensors. Problem solved. That's their vision, right? A world where human care gets stripped down into lines of code, where messy, inefficient human relationships are just streamlined away, where the answer to every single social failure is more software.
But this is where that whole vision just fundamentally breaks down, according to Hoerricks. They make a really critical point about who gets left behind by these supposed solutions. Can you elaborate on why autistic people specifically might not fit their inputs, as the author says?
Absolutely. Hoerricks argues quite forcefully that autistic people don't fit their inputs. This is especially true for individuals who might communicate using scripts, or maybe not speak at all, or people who use AAC devices, augmentative and alternative communication, or those who rely heavily on Gestalt language processing.
Right. Their communication just doesn't neatly map onto things like keyword matching or standard sentiment analysis that these AIs use.
Exactly. Our ways of expressing distress, they might not match the training data. Our pauses, our stims, echolalia. The algorithms just don't compute it correctly.
So what happens then?
Well, we get misclassified, misdiagnosed, mistreated. The system, Hoerricks contends, flags us as being non-compliant or maybe broken. Not because we are, but because the machine itself was never designed or trained to understand our way of being in the world.
And that's the real danger, isn't it?
That's the point they hammer home. AI doesn't just replicate existing biases, it scales them up massively. It enshrines them in code. And then it calls the result objectivity.
And Hoerricks really pushes back against this tech narrative, what the tech world frames as, disruption or efficiency.
Yeah.
The autistic community, according to the author, recognizes it very differently as disappearance by design, or maybe exclusion with a new interface.
That's a powerful phrase, exclusion with a new interface.
It is. And Hoerricks critiques this idea that AI is somehow neutral. It carries the values of its creators, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of those creators, Hoerricks points out, talk openly about things like optimizing humanity.
Ooh.
Yeah. Or solving the burden of care, about engineering better people.
Which carries this chilling implication that maybe autistic people, or disabled people generally, were seen as the problem it was built to eliminate.
It's a very strong claim, but you can see the logic trail they're following
Yeah.
and the impact on autistic people needing, say, level 2 or higher support. It isn't theoretical. Hoerricks says it's happening now.
Yeah.
For them, losing these professionals isn't just a staffing headache. It's described as the end of access, the end of trusted relationships.
Those specific human connections.
Exactly. Those critical connections with people who actually got them. Think about who's lost. Teachers who learned our rhythms, Social workers who thought for our services. FLPs who understood our gestalts.
So inclusion then just becomes, what, a checkbox on a dashboard.
Pretty much. Inclusion becomes surveillance data. Independence becomes a kind of code word for abandonment. Autistic individuals end up, in the author's words, misrendered, flattened, mistaken for a glitch. They're essentially overwritten by the system's failure to understand them.
This leads to something Hoerricks terms recursive collapse. Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's this idea that many autistic people actually became teachers, therapists, nurses. Not because it was easy, but almost out of necessity.
To care for themselves. Or others like them.
Both. To care for themselves, their own kids, for others in the community who were never really meant to thrive in the existing systems. They were trying to build something better from the inside. It was this kind of self-sustaining cycle of care.
But now that cycle is being broken.
That's the argument. The rising costs. The debt trap. It prevents autistic people from entering the very professions they need, the ones they might have naturally gravitated towards to help build that better world. That pipeline collapses.
And what takes its place?
Well, the apps, the algorithms. And Hoerricks is quite critical here, suggesting these replacements are often fueled by eugenics, racism, and the flattening logic of the so-called science of reading.
That's the very prescriptive, phonics-heavy literacy approach.
Right, often criticized for being too one-size-fits-all, especially for neurodivergent learners. Hoerricks argues these apps aren't really designed to teach, but to sort. Yeah. Not to include, but to extract data, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not to support, but to surveil.
Okay, so, wow. If public pathways are closing, college is a death sentence, essential jobs are being automated away, and care itself is being turned into code, what's left?
Hoerricks asks that exact question, right?
Yeah.
What remains? What do we build?
Not from theory, but from the material conditions of siege. Yeah. It's a powerful framing.
So what are the proposed solutions, then, if the system is failing or actively hostile?
The core idea is clear. Build with each other from below. It's about grassroots action, community resilience. Hoerricks gives really concrete examples, things like mutual aid clinics, community-taught literacy, and AAC. Not waiting for professionals, but sharing knowledge directly.
Deprofessionalized care,
Yeah.
grounded in relationship, not just credentials.
Exactly. And importantly, they call for coalitions, building bridges between disabled, racialized, undocumented, and poor communities. Recognizing that the fight against exclusion in one area is often connected to others. It's not about being saved, it's about collective refusal.
Refusal of conditional belonging. Refusal to be just a data point. Refusal to be disappeared by slick talk about efficiency.
And Hoerricks says the answers aren't coming from Silicon Valley. Where should we look?
To everyday acts of resistance that are already happening. Real-world stuff. They point to examples like mothers teaching their children to sign in waiting rooms, or undocumented organizers defending schools from raids, or autistic adults building spelling communities, finding ways to communicate and connect in rented basements, on Discord servers, and WhatsApp voice notes. Real, often hidden networks of support.
That's powerful. So the strategies are things like memory, care, storytelling.
Exactly. Hoerricks frames them almost like tactical moves. Memory is resistance, remembering ways of being that the system tries to erase. Collective care is sabotage, undermining a system based on isolation and extraction. Storytelling is architecture, building new worlds through shared narratives.
And whatever is built now, it has to be designed to last, right? To survive the enclosure.
Yeah, to outlast the enclosure, as they put it, to live underground if it must. Its purpose has to be fundamental. To feed, shelter, regulate, and remember. It reinforces this really potent idea. Care is not just compassion. It's strategy. It's defense. It's the first act of rebellion.
Wow. So the central idea, really, is that autistic people aren't the glitches in this emerging system.
Yeah.
They're the evidence of what their system was built to erase. Is that fair?
That's exactly it. Their very ways of being, the stems, the silences, the scripts, the different sense of time, they inherently interrupt their metrics. They don't fit the neat boxes.
And despite all the challenges, all the bleakness described, there's still this thread of resilience, of power.
Absolutely. Hoerricks connects it back to history, to ongoing reality, reminding us we have always built outside the enclosure. We've always found each other in the margins, in the pauses, in the moments between collapse and connection.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, something to really chew on, taken straight from the source. Because care is not compliance, and difference is not defect. And this system, this algorithm, this enclosure, this empire was never going to hold us forever. We were always meant to outlive it.
And the final, defiant line from Hoerricks.
And we will.